All right, we are going to do a writing activity, just like we did this morning, or excuse me, this afternoon on Zoom with the kiddos that joined us then. You are going to need some writing paper for this activity, and a pencil would be great. The paper that I sent home in the work packets, there's some writing lined paper with a little space for a picture. That would be a great thing to grab, or just blank paper. The kids had their parents maybe make the lines for them if they didn't already have paper like that. So that is just, you want to, okay, we set up most of our writing activities to be done on paper that has lines like this, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But yeah, so if you haven't done that, you could pause this and go make sure your paper is ready to go, and then come back. Okay, so we're going to write something about this and about this picture. We're going to talk about it in a minute, but I want to talk about a couple things about how we're going to write, and then I'm going to come and sit down, pull this up close, and you won't be seeing much of me, just my hand moving. So when we write sentences in class, we would always say every sentence starts with an uppercase letter, has spaces, and ends with a period, an exclamation mark, or a question mark. So say that again with me. Every sentence, so just stretching our arms out wide, every sentence starts with an uppercase letter, has spaces, and ends with a period, exclamation, or a question mark. And that, of course, depends on what kind of sentence it is. Another thing I wanted to show you when we do our writing, it is really important to write letters on the lines. Did I grab the right one? Yes. On the lines in the right places. So we often talk about tall letters, short letters, and letters with a tail. I'm just going to extend this a little bit real quick to give you some examples of what we're talking about and why these lines are important. So if we talk about a tall letter, it's a letter that starts at the top line and goes to the bottom line, like the letter T, or like the letter H. It goes from the top line to the bottom line. It would be the letter L. And then there's short letters, letters that start from the dotted line and then just sit on the bottom line. They don't go above, they don't go below. That would be like the letter A, or the letter O, or C. Those are short letters. Then there are letters with a tail. Letters with a tail go from the dotted line to the bottom line, but then they continue on down underground. So, for example, we have letter Y or letter Q. Those are letters with a tail. Letter J. Okay, so now we've talked about two important things when we do our writing. Every sentence starts with an uppercase letter, has spaces, and ends with a period, exclamation, or a question mark. And then we want to make sure we're putting our letters on the lines the correct way. If it's a tall letter, from top to the bottom. If it's a short letter, it's dotted line to the bottom line. And if it's a letter with a tail, it's the dotted line or the middle line all the way through to the underground. And the other thing we want to think about, and I'll talk about this as we write, is certain letters we pick up our pencil or a pen, and some letters we do not. So let's see, for the letter, let me just go back to this one. So I'm going to do a letter G. A lot of kids make a circle, and then they want to pick up their pencil and add the bottom part. But we don't do that. We keep our pen down the whole time until we are done there. Let's see. So we'll just talk about that as we go. But it's just important as you do this writing activity that you remember all these important things about writing. So we form good habits and make our papers look nice. All right. So now here's our picture. We showed this morning or this afternoon, nice and close. The kids took a good look at it, And then they wrote, or they told me about the things they saw in the picture. So I'm going to put that just right there. And I just made an arrow. You don't have to do this, of course, because you don't have the paper here, but we just made an arrow talking about this picture. These are the things that we see. And I just had them tell me some different things. And the first thing they noticed today, a few kids said that there was a snowman in the picture. And they thought that was really funny that there would be a snowman on a beach on a sunny day, wearing sunglasses and a hat. And then we talked about that it actually was a sandman, or a snowman made out of sand. So we'll just write snowman here. If I'm standing up, then the way this is getting recorded on Zoom kind of cuts off my head. So I'm sitting down and the angle is not the best for my handwriting. So hopefully you'll be able to see it all right there. Okay, so they saw a snowman. They saw that there was a dog, of course. They saw sunglasses. They thought it was funny that the dog was wearing sunglasses, and even the snowman was wearing sunglasses. All right, they noticed that the dog was reading a book. So we just wrote one word, kind of just little keywords from what we see. Oh, and the last one, we talked about where the dog was. There's that line. And the dog was at the beach. All right, all important words for the picture and for our writing. So we could have chosen any word, snowman, dog, sunglasses, book, or beach, to write a sentence about, but we thought we would start with the thing that the picture seems to mostly be about, which is the dog. We didn't write any details about what the dog was doing, about the reading the book or laying on a towel. We just simply wrote, the dog is at the beach. So I'm going to get a little writing tool. The kids always liked watching this happen. Oh, and then every now and then it would do something really crazy like that. Let's see if we can line that back up. I better stand up. There we go. I think 2 lines will do it. I'm going to put in the lids on my pen so they don't dry out. All right, then I would take my finger real quick and make those dashes. All right. Now we are ready to go. We talked about the sentence about what we were going to write, and we said the dog is at the beach. So then we counted our number of words in that sentence. The dog is at the beach. So there were 6 words, and then we just took it word by word. A lot of the words are words we should know because they're sight words or words that we can sound out. When we get to a word we don't know, or maybe we wouldn't be able to write it all by ourselves, we'll talk about it. And if we were doing this in class, we would talk about it and just get it correct. But when your kids are writing at home, if they are not hearing all the sounds or they don't know how to write all the sounds, that is perfectly okay. That's how you begin writing. You write down what you hear. So let's get started. All right, we're writing the word the. Remember, we talked about every sentence starts with an uppercase letter. There's our uppercase T. This is the word the. So it's a word that you should know very well. You should be able to read it and write it by now. We've had that for a long time. So the. All right, the next thing we need is spaces. All right, so the dog. D. So that's a word we can sound out. D. Og. We often do that with our fingers to help us hear the different sounds. D. Og. D. That's a D. Letter D is a tall letter. It is a letter where we do not pick up our pen. Keep it down the whole time. Back up to the top. Back down. Little tail. Dog. D. I hope you're doing this at home. Make the sounds and I'll give you a chance to do them first and then I'll do it and see if you did it correctly. So make the sounds. All right, it's D, A, G. D, A, A. O. Your O should start at the top, just on the dotted line, but going around, not at the bottom and going up and around, but starting at the top and going around this way. D, A, G, G, G. That is the sound of G. G is a letter that goes underground, a letter with a tail. The dog, we have our space. We're on to the next word. The dog is. So we're going to put our 2 finger spaces there. Is. Is a sight word. We should know how to spell it. If we were sounding it out, you might think that was a Z, is. But that's why it's a sight word, because most of the letters in the sight words just don't quite make all the right sounds as they would if they were by themselves. So is. The dog is at. That's a word we can hear both sounds. At. At. And I'm at the end of my row there. I don't want to squish my next word in there. So I'm going to the next row. If you had more space, you could continue going. The dog is at. 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 The. 2 finger spaces, just like up here, but without the uppercase, because now we're in the middle of our word. At the. We talked about just because we're out of room and we come down here, it does not mean that we start with an uppercase. That's only at the beginning of every sentence, and we're still in the middle of our sentence. We just ran out of room. Those are things you kids have heard a lot at school this year. So just a reminder. The dog is at the beach. All right, so that's a word that has a few more letters, but let's just take it kind of one sound at a time and see what we can do. The dog is at the beach. B, B, B. That is the letter B. Don't forget your 2 finger spaces. B, E. Hopefully you are hearing and making it yourself, but hearing the E, the long E sound. When E says its name, we call that the long E sound. E. Beach. So that ch sound, we talked about that. Before we got to that though, we talked about that there is another letter that goes here, and they probably, as kindergartners, wouldn't know what letter goes there. But once I write it, just to tell them, I'll let them know that that's another example of 2 vowels go walking. The first one does the talking and says its name, E, and the second one is quiet. They have said that many times, so that's something they're familiar with. B-E. If they were writing the word and they only made the E and they did not put the A, that is just fine. That's very appropriate for kindergarten. B-E. Many kids know what that sound is, and some of them get it a little bit mixed up with TH. Sometimes they think they know there's an H in it. This morning someone thought that it was TH, but we just reminded them that it was CH. I was glad they remembered it had something to do with H. So CH says ch. Right, you don't need to underline that on your paper, kids, but just pointing out that CH is the ch sound. And then I asked, okay, our sentence, let's read it one more time. The dog is at the beach. Does it look like we're done? Does it look like we've done a good job? And they said yes, but then I had them look a little closer and I had them remember what we say about sentences. And so we said it again, and then they figured out what was missing. So let's say our little thing about sentences. Every sentence starts with an uppercase letter, has spaces, ends with a period, exclamation, or a question mark. And before I even said the last part, they knew that they had missed, we all missed putting the period there. So our sentence is actually not complete until we have our ending mark, period, exclamation, or question mark. This is just a telling sentence. It's not asking anything. It's not showing a lot of emotion or excitement. So we're just putting a period. All right, that is a nice sentence. Let's do it. Let's read it all together. The dog is at the beach. All right, now I gave the kids this morning at Zoom, or when we were on Zoom, the challenge to take a look at that picture again. Let's see. There it is. We looked at it nice and long, talked about it again, just all the things that were in it, so that their challenge was to maybe write another sentence at home and draw an illustration for their new sentence, or draw an illustration for this one, or both. So I'm excited to see some of their sentences. I told them if they make another sentence and add an illustration, or just make another sentence, or add an illustration to this sentence, to go with their writing, to have their parents snap a picture of it and send it to me and remind, or to our Facebook page. We would love to see the things that the kids are doing at home to practice their learning. We want to keep working on this kind of stuff as much as we can. So I'll come back with other writing activities on other days. I have a lot more of these pictures, so maybe we'll pull out another one and do another one next time. All right, happy writing, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.